They wanted me to give my apartment to my brother so he could trick his fiancée's wealthy parents. I said no. Here's what happened. I never thought I'd be the villain in my own family's story. But here I am, 28 years old, sitting in an apartment I bought with a decade of sweat, being told I'm the reason my brother's life fell apart. Not because I did something wrong. Because I refused to do something wrong. And in my family, apparently, that's the worst crime of all. Let me start from the beginning. I come from a middle-class family. Solidly, unremarkably middle class. My dad worked in a factory for 34 years, same plant, same shift rotation, same calloused hands every evening when he came through the door. My mom was a secretary at a law firm downtown, answering phones, filing papers, making sure other people's lives ran smoothly while ours ran on a tight budget. They weren't rich. They weren't poor. They were the kind of people who checked the grocery store flyers every Thursday and considered a restaurant dinner a special occasion. They raised 2 sons. My brother is 4 years older than me, 32 now, and from the day I was old enough to notice, he was the son our family orbited around. Tall, good-looking, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and have 3 conversations going within 5 minutes. Teachers loved him. Girls loved him. Our parents loved him in that specific way families love the child who reflects well on them. He was charming. Genuinely, dangerously charming. The kind of charming where you don't realize you've been talked into something until you're already halfway through it. I was the other one. The quiet kid. The one who got decent grades, kept his head down, and never gave anyone a reason to worry, or a reason to notice. While my brother was winning class president elections and taking girls to homecoming, I was stocking shelves at a grocery store at 17, putting half my paycheck into a savings account my parents didn't even know existed. That savings account became my religion. While other kids were buying sneakers and video games, I was watching a number grow. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't glamorous. It was just a decision I made, that I would own something real before I turned 30, something nobody could take from me. So I saved. Through high school, through community college, through my first real job, through every birthday and holiday where I wanted things I didn't buy. At 26, I bought an apartment. A small place, $142,000 in a decent neighborhood. Nothing that would make anyone's jaw drop. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that could charitably be called cozy, and a living room with enough space for a couch and a TV. But it was mine. I paid it off aggressively, every spare dollar going toward the mortgage until I owned it free and clear by 27. 10 years of discipline. 10 years of saying no to things I wanted so I could have something I needed. My parents were proud. For about a week. "Oh, that's nice, honey," my mom said, and then the conversation shifted back to my brother's new job, my brother's new girlfriend, my brother's latest achievement in the great performance art of his life. Because that's what my brother's life is, a performance. A beautiful, convincing, utterly hollow performance. He took a different path than me. Where I saved, he spent. Where I built quietly, he built loudly, with other people's money and his own magnetic confidence. He always dated up, women from better families, better neighborhoods, women whose fathers had connections and whose mothers had standards my brother could charm his way past. He used relationships like ladders, each one a rung higher than the last. At 32, my brother has an impressive image and 0 assets. He lives in a rented apartment in a trendy neighborhood he can barely afford. He drives a car he doesn't own, leased of course, because the monthly payment on a BMW looks better than the purchase price of a Honda. He wears suits he's still paying off on credit cards that are maxed to their limits. If you met him at a party, you'd think he had it all. If you looked at his bank statements, you'd call a financial counselor. Then came the fiancée. She was different from his usual girlfriends. She wasn't just from a good family, she was from a wealthy one. Real wealth. Her family owns several businesses, a large house in the kind of neighborhood where the driveways are longer than my entire street, and vacation properties in places I've only seen on screensavers. She's beautiful, educated, kind in that unforced way that people who've never had to worry about money sometimes are. And crucially, she's an only child. My brother saw the ultimate prize. Marry her, join the family, eventually inherit an empire. He proposed after 8 months. She said yes. Her parents were cautious but accepting, they could see their daughter was happy, and they weren't the type to stand in the way of love. Wedding was planned for the following summer. But here's the thing about wealthy families, they didn't build that wealth by being naive. Her parents were traditional. Old school. They expected that the man marrying their daughter had his life together. They made comments at family gatherings about where the couple would live and starting life on solid ground. They asked questions, politely, carefully, but persistently, about my brother's financial situation. My brother was vague. He deflected with charm, changed subjects with jokes, painted pictures with broad strokes and no details. "Oh, I'm doing well. Very comfortable. Got things lined up." The fiancée herself didn't care about money, she had plenty. But her parents wanted stability. They wanted to know their daughter was marrying a man of substance, not just a man of charisma. And that's when the bomb dropped. Update 1. The family dinner. It was a Tuesday evening. My parents invited me to dinner, which should have been my first red flag, because family dinners at my parents' house had become increasingly rare since I became the boring son with a small apartment and a small life. My brother was there, looking more tense than I'd ever seen him, though he hid it well behind a fresh haircut and a shirt that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. We made it through dinner with the usual small talk. Mom's pot roast. Dad's complaints about the new management at the factory. My brother's practiced anecdotes about work. Then, over coffee, my brother cleared his throat. "We need to talk about the wedding," he said. "And about expectations." He explained the situation with a smoothness that almost made it sound reasonable. The fiancé's parents were asking pointed questions. They wanted to see evidence of stability, property, savings, a foundation. "They're old-fashioned," he said, leaning forward with that earnest look he'd perfected over decades of getting what he wanted. "They want to know I can provide. That I have roots." I nodded, sipping my coffee, genuinely not seeing where this was headed. My brother had always found ways to solve his own problems, usually by finding someone else to solve them for him. Then he looked directly at me, and I felt something shift in the room. "You have an apartment," he said. "I have nothing. On paper. If her parents find out I'm basically starting from zero, they might influence her to call the whole thing off. I need to show them something real." Before I could respond, my dad jumped in. He'd clearly been rehearsing this. "We've discussed this as a family," he said, and the word family landed like a verdict I hadn't been present for. "We think you should transfer your apartment to your brother. Just until after the wedding. So he can show her parents he has property. Then we'll figure out the rest." The rest. That word hung in the air like smoke. "Transfer my apartment," I said slowly. "To him. For a wedding." My mom reached across the table and touched my hand. "It's not forever, sweetheart. Just to make the right impression. Once they're married and settled, it won't matter anymore." "Won't matter," I repeated. "So what happens to my apartment after the impression is made?" Silence. The kind of silence that answers the question better than words ever could. My brother finally spoke. "I mean, I might need it for a while. Starting a marriage, we'll need a place to stay while we figure things out. It's not like I'm going to sell it or anything. It's just..." "So, temporary means I give you my apartment permanently," I said, "but you're calling it temporary, so I'll agree." My dad tried a different angle. "Reason," he called it. "Son, this is a huge opportunity for our family. If your brother marries into that family, we're connected to real wealth. Doors will open. Business opportunities. Social standing. Your little apartment is nothing compared to what this marriage could bring all of us." My little apartment. 10 years of my life. Nothing. My mom chimed in, "We're not asking you to be homeless. You can stay with us. Or rent something small. You're young, you'll recover. But this moment, this wedding, it's once in a lifetime." My brother leaned back, switching to the charm offensive. "Bro, I'm not trying to steal from you. I'm asking for help. You know I'm good for it. Once I'm married, once I have access to better opportunities, I'll pay you back. Better than pay you back, I'll hook you up. Jobs, connections, whatever you need. This is an investment in all of us." "An investment where I give you my only asset," I said, "and hope you remember me when you're rich. That's not an investment. That's a donation with a fantasy attached." The charm evaporated. Something harder took its place. "You want to deceive her family," I said, speaking plainly for the first time. "Pretend you have property when you don't. Start a marriage on a lie. And you need my apartment to make the lie convincing." "It's not a lie," my brother said. "It's presentation. Everyone does it. I don't. I have an apartment because I worked for it. You don't have one because you spent everything on appearances. Now you want my reality to support your appearance." I shook my head. "No." What happened next was like watching masks fall off in sequence. My mom started crying. "Why do you always have to be so difficult? Can't you do one thing for this family?" My dad got angry, genuinely angry, veins in the neck angry. "We sacrificed everything for you boys. And when we ask for one thing, you act like we're criminals. And my brother, my charming, smooth-talking brother. His mask didn't just slip, it shattered. "You've always been jealous of me," he said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Always. I have charisma, I have opportunities, I have a future. You have a small apartment and a small life. And you won't even share that because you can't stand seeing me succeed." I stood up. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "I'm not jealous," I said. "I'm realistic. You've spent 32 years choosing image over substance. Designer clothes, but no savings. Fancy car, but no equity. Now you want a fancy wife and you need my equity to get her. That's not success. That's a house of cards. And I'm not going to be the foundation for something built on lies." My dad pointed at me. "If you don't help your brother, you're choosing an apartment over family. Remember that. If you're asking me to commit fraud, because that's what transferring property for fake purposes is, you're choosing a scam over your son. Remember that." I left. The drive home was silent except for the sound of my own breathing and the thoughts racing through my head like a freight train with no brakes. Update 2. The investigation. 4 days after the dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was happening. The desperation in my brother's eyes wasn't just about impressing in-laws. It was sharper than that. More urgent. I called a friend who works in financial services. Not to spy exactly, but to understand. I asked him hypothetically what someone in my brother's position might be dealing with. He didn't need hypotheticals. He'd seen the type 100 times. "If your brother has been living beyond his means for years," my friend said, "he probably has significant debt. Credit cards, personal loans, maybe even informal debts to friends. The apartment isn't just about showing off to the in-laws. He needs an asset. Something to borrow against. Something to refinance. Something to sell if the whole thing goes sideways." I felt sick. I started paying closer attention to my brother's social media. On the surface, it was the usual glamour: restaurant dinners, weekend trips, photos with a fiancé at places I couldn't afford to park. But in the comments, a different picture emerged. A college buddy: "Bro, you still owe me from Vegas." An old friend with a laughing emoji that didn't look like it was laughing: "When you paying back that loan though?" Face with tears of joy, a pattern of small, telling moments that revealed a man who borrowed, charmed, promised, and defaulted. My brother didn't just want to impress the in-laws. He needed this marriage like a drowning man needs a life raft. Her family's money wouldn't just elevate him, it would save him. But if they knew his real situation, the debt, the defaults, the years of living on smoke and mirrors, they would never have approved the marriage. I thought about telling the fiancée. She seemed like a genuinely good person, warm, funny, the kind of woman who asked about your day and actually listened to the answer. She was in love with a version of my brother that didn't exist, and part of me felt like she deserved to know. But I also knew what would happen if I exposed him. My family would never forgive me. Not in a dramatic, movie-style way. In the quiet, devastating way where you're still invited to Thanksgiving but nobody saves you a seat. I'd be the villain for the rest of my life, the traitor who destroyed his brother's happiness out of jealousy and spite. So I chose a middle path. I wouldn't give my apartment. I wouldn't actively expose my brother. But I wouldn't lie for him either. Whatever came next would be his own construction, rising or falling on its own foundation, or lack thereof. Update 3. The pressure and the cracks. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in family manipulation. My brother tried everything. Guilt. I can't believe my own brother would let me lose the love of my life over an apartment. Charm. Come on man, we've always been a team. This is me asking my little brother for help. That's all. Promises. I swear on everything, once we're settled, I'll buy you a better place. Twice as big. You'll look back and laugh at this. Even a vague threat, delivered with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. People talk, you know. And when they ask why the wedding fell apart, I'll have to tell them my own brother wouldn't lift a finger. I didn't budge. My parents stopped calling. When I called them, conversations were short, stiff, polite in the way that's worse than anger. My mom's voice had that wounded quality she'd perfected over decades, not accusatory, just sad, which was infinitely more effective as a weapon. My dad simply stopped acknowledging my existence beyond what was strictly necessary. I was officially the black sheep. Not for doing something wrong, for refusing to do something wrong. In my family, those were apparently the same thing. 3 months before the wedding, the fiancé's parents requested a meeting. Not a casual dinner, not a cocktail party, a meeting. They wanted to sit down with my brother and discuss practical matters. They were having a prenuptial agreement drawn up, and as part of the process, they needed a clear picture of what my brother was bringing to the table. My brother panicked. He tried to stall, suggested pushing the meeting to after the wedding, claimed he was too busy with work to prepare documents. The fiancé's father, a man who'd built a business empire through precision and attention to detail, was not impressed by vagueness. The fiancée started noticing little things at first, my brother snapping at her when she mentioned the meeting, changing the subject when she asked about his savings, getting defensive when she suggested they sit down and do a budget together. She was falling in love with a man who was slowly being replaced by a stranger. His lies began contradicting each other. He'd told her he owned property but couldn't produce a deed. He'd implied he had investments but couldn't name a brokerage account. He'd said he was comfortable but flinched every time a bill arrived. The cracks were showing, and I watched from a distance, feeling something between vindication and grief. Update 4. The unraveling. The truth didn't come out in a dramatic explosion. It came out the way truth usually does, in pieces, each one more damaging than the last. The fiancée confronted my brother directly after he dodged the prenup meeting for the third time. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She simply sat him down and said, "Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now." He confessed. Some of it. The debt, though he minimized the amount. The lack of property, though he framed it as, "I'm between investments." The credit cards, though he called it, "temporary cash flow issues." Even in confession, he couldn't stop performing. She was hurt. But not for the reasons you might expect. She didn't care that he didn't have money. Her family had money. She cared that he had lied. For a year, he'd constructed a version of himself that didn't exist, and she'd fallen in love with that construction. "I don't care that you don't have money," she told him, "and I only know this because my brother repeated it to our mother, who repeated it to me in one of our terse phone calls. My family has money. I care that you lied to me. For a year. About who you are." She didn't call off the wedding immediately. She said she needed time. My brother interpreted this as hope. I interpreted it as the pause before the fall. Her parents were less ambiguous. They'd built their wealth by being careful, by trusting numbers over charm, by doing due diligence on everything from business deals to the man courting their only daughter. They ran a background check. The kind you can run when you have money and connections and a daughter you want to protect. The full picture emerged. The debt was worse than my brother had admitted. Multiple credit cards maxed out. A personal loan 3 months in arrears. A pattern of borrowing from friends and acquaintances, always with charm and promises, never with repayment. His credit score was a disaster. His financial history was a roadmap of irresponsibility dressed up in good suits. The fiancé's parents sat their daughter down. They didn't issue an ultimatum exactly, they were too sophisticated for that. They simply laid out the facts, expressed their concerns, and made it clear that if she chose to marry someone who had spent a year deceiving her and her family, she would be doing so without their support. Not their financial support, their emotional support, their trust, their belief in her judgment. She loved my brother. I believe that. But she loved her family too, and she wasn't willing to build a marriage on the same foundation of deception that had defined his entire adult life. The wedding was postponed. Then quietly cancelled. The venue was released. The deposits were lost. The save-the-dates became artifacts of something that almost was. My brother was devastated. I saw him once during this period, at a gas station of all places. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in the way a man looks when the scaffolding of his life has been kicked away and he realizes there was nothing structural underneath. He saw me, and for a moment, something honest flickered across his face. Something that might have been shame. Then it was gone, replaced by the old mask, now visibly cracked. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. We pumped our gas and drove in separate directions. Update 5. The blame and the aftermath. You already know who they blamed. If you'd just given him the apartment, none of this would have happened. That was my dad, calling me for the first time in weeks, not to check on me but to deliver a verdict. They would have married, and everything would have worked out. My mom, her voice carrying the weight of a dream she'd built around my brother's potential windfall. You ruined your brother's life over property. Both of them, in different words at different times, with the same unshakable conviction. The logic was staggering. My brother had spent a year lying to a woman and her family. He'd been caught not because of anything I did, but because wealthy people don't build empires by trusting charming men with no documentation. The prenup process would have exposed him regardless. The background check would have found everything. My apartment, even if I'd given it to him, would have been one piece of a puzzle that still wouldn't fit, because one small apartment doesn't explain away a mountain of debt and a history of defaults. But none of that mattered. In my family's mythology, I was the pivot point. The one who could have saved everything by sacrificing his one asset to support a fraud. The fact that the fraud was unsustainable, that it would have collapsed eventually, that it was wrong in the first place, none of that registered. They needed a villain, and the son who said no was a more convenient villain than the son who lied. A year has passed. My brother is still single, still in debt, though I've heard he's making some effort to address it. Credit counseling, a cheaper apartment, fewer Instagram posts of expensive dinners. He still has the charm, but it's been tempered by something. Not humility exactly, more like caution. The caution of a man who bet everything on a bluff and got called. My parents speak to me. Technically, we exchange the minimum viable communication for a family that still shares holidays and last names. The warmth is gone, replaced by a polite chill that might never thaw. My mom hugs me when I arrive and lets go a beat too soon. My dad shakes my hand instead of clasping my shoulder. Small things. The kind of small things that tell you everything. I still have my apartment. My small apartment with its one bedroom and its cozy kitchen and its living room where I sit on evenings like this one, looking at walls that belong to me because I work for them. They wanted me to transfer my apartment so my brother could pretend to be something he's not. To deceive a woman and her family into a marriage built on lies. And I'm the bad guy for saying no. Dad said my little apartment was nothing compared to what the marriage could bring. My apartment is real. My brother's promises were fantasies. Real beats fantasy every time. Unless you're in my family, apparently. He spent 32 years building an image with no foundation. Designer clothes, leased car, rented lifestyle. Then he needed my foundation to hold up his image. That's not family support. That's architectural theft. Mom asked why I always have to be difficult. Difficult means saying no to fraud. Difficult means refusing to deceive innocent people. If that's difficult, then I'm proud to be difficult. The engagement fell apart because he lied. Not because I didn't give him my apartment. He lied about who he was, and the truth came out. But somehow that's my fault. Because if I'd helped him lie better, maybe they wouldn't have caught him. My brother said I was jealous of his charisma. I'm not jealous. I'm watching a man who chose charm over substance discover that charm has an expiration date. Mine doesn't. My apartment doesn't. That's not jealousy. That's just math. They ran a background check and found everything. Debt, defaults, a pattern of deception. All I did was refuse to participate. The collapse was entirely his own construction. But I'm the villain. In this family, the one who doesn't lie is the problem. Last week, I got a text from my brother. First real contact in months. Not a holiday greeting, not a group chat, but a direct message, just for me. I know you think you were right. But you don't know what you cost me. I stared at that message for a long time. I typed a response and deleted it. Typed another and deleted that too. 5 drafts, each one longer, each one trying to explain something I've been carrying for a year. Finally, I sent, I didn't cost you anything. You cost yourself everything. I just refused to help you hide it. No response. I watched the screen for a while, then put the phone down and looked around my apartment. The walls I painted myself. The shelves I assembled on a Saturday morning. The window that catches the afternoon light in a way that makes the whole room glow for about 20 minutes every day. A small daily miracle in a small daily life. Still mine. Still real. Still standing. The family still sees me as the villain. The one who wouldn't help. The one who ruined the wedding. But here's what they can't see. The wedding was already ruined, by lies, by debt, by a man who thought charm could substitute for character. I didn't destroy anything. I refused to help build a prison of deception around an innocent woman. They wanted me to donate my apartment to a fraud. I said no. That makes me difficult, selfish, the family disappointment. Fine. I can live with their disappointment. I can't live with participating in a lie that would have trapped someone in a marriage to a man she didn't truly know. My brother will find another scheme, another shortcut, another person to charm. That's who he is. But he'll do it without my apartment. Without my complicity. Without me. Some people think family means helping no matter what. I think family means telling the truth even when it costs you. This cost me their approval. But I kept my apartment. Kept my integrity. Kept myself. That's enough. That has to be enough. Because it's all I have left of a family that wanted me to be an accessory to their favorite son's con game.